Shalom, and welcome to Bible Stories as Blueprints of the Soul, your Biblical Hebrew podcast. Shalom and welcome to our Biblical Hebrew podcast. In the Greek mythology, we find a story about Helen of Troy, that because of her, a great war happened. People who are interested in Greek mythology or in stories in general can read about Helen of Troy. But before we meet Helen, the Bible tells us an interesting story. There is a famine in the land of Canaan, a famine that encouraged Abraham and Sarai, his wife, to approach Egypt. While they're approaching Egypt, Abraham warns his wife before the encounter with the Egyptians. He advises her to introduce herself as his sister and not as his wife. The cause is simple. If the Egyptian will know that she is his wife and she is beautiful to look at or fair to look at, they will kill him because he's the last stopper, and they will take Sarai. This is the external reason, but this story reflects higher wisdom and higher mathematics and music. So what is this story hides in its letters and names? The name Sarai is written with 3 letters. Shin, left shin, as we express it as S in English. The letter Shin has a value of 300. The letter Resh has a value of 200. So together they make 500. And the letter Yod has a value of 10. So in general, the value of the name Sarai is 510. When we divide the number 510 to 6, we get interesting value. The value that we get is 85, which is the value of the term milah in Hebrew. Milah is a word in English. In other words, the value of the word or the name Sarai stands for 6 times word. What does the number 6 stand for? The 6th day of creation or time. So when Sarai descends to Egypt, is the concept of the divine word, the divine logos, descends in time. And the word is beautiful or fair to look at. This is what Abraham tells Sarai. The word is very pure, like glass. We can see through it. And how do we make glass? We take a sand, and sand composed of many scattered little particles. But when we put them in a very high temperature, in a great fire, from the sand we can make glass. In the same manner, the word, the divine word or the divine logos, can transcend multiplicity into one transparent glass or perception that we can see through. And Sarai represents this perception. And when we think about Egypt, we don't speak about geographical Egypt, but a concept of Egypt. Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim means narrow waters or narrow time or double narrowness. When we live in time and space, we feel a lot of pressure. So Sarai, as the divine word, descends to Egypt, and in Egypt, and this is the interesting part, there is a king named Pharaoh. And now we don't speak about Pharaoh as historical king, but as a name. The name Pharaoh, in Hebrew Paro, has the value of 355, like the days that we have in the lunar year. So the name Pharaoh represents the moon, but the moon is the lesser illuminator, as we find it in Genesis 1. In the fourth day of creation, we have the greater illuminator and the lesser illuminator. So Pharaoh, Paro, has the value of 355, like the days that we have in a lunar year. And a lunar year is lesser in 10 days than the solar year. And Pharaoh represents this perception. Also, another word in Hebrew has the value of 355. Machshava. Machshava is a thought. So, a thought has the value of 355. Pharaoh has the value of 355. And a lunar year has the value of 355. We have a triangle, we have a vessel, Pharaoh, thought, and a lunar year. Now, what does it mean that Sarai, the divine word, which is 6-time word in Hebrew, descends not just to Egypt, but to the human thought? Now, Pharaoh, the human thought in time, thinks that he can have Sarai, meaning the human mind in time thinks that he can have it, that he can have a hold or control of the divine logos or the divine speech. Humans think they can capture the thought of creation. But the biblical story tells us one interesting fact. This is impossible. No human can capture the divine logos. And if we think that we can capture the divine logos, it's only for a while. Like what happens to Pharaoh at night when he wants to approach. What is a night again? Night is when we don't have a clue what is happening. It's not just external night. It's a situation of lack of clear thinking. So at night, when we don't have a clear thinking, Pharaoh wants to have Sarai, but he can't. He can't. The Hebrew lore says that he's beaten by God and he understands that he cannot approach Sarah, and he releases her to Abram with many presents and with a letter that he promises her as a mansion, the land of Goshen. He gives her as a present the land of Goshen, the delta of the Nile, as a present because he wanted to marry her. So he grants her a present. Later on, we shall see that the children of Israel are living in the land of Goshen. And another interesting tip, because this conversation is very deep and I'm not sure we can circle all of this in one little podcast, but just to give us a hint of the divine thought and the relations between Abraham and Sarai. The value of Sarai is 510. The value of Abram is 243. When we subtract the value of Abram from the value of Sarai, we get the number of 267. In a non-linear thinking, 267 or 267 is like 7 times 26. 7 times 26 is 182, the value of the name of Jacob in Hebrew, Yaakov. And this weekly portion, Parashat Shmot, this is the second book of the Torah. In English we call it Exodus. This book opens with the words Ve'ele Shmot Bnei Yisrael Habaim Mitzrayma Et Yaakov Ish Uveito Ba'u. So already in the first verse of the book of Exodus, we find the name Jacob. Why did I bring this connection? Because already in the book of Genesis, we are locating the roots of the names of the descendants of Abraham and Sarai. And as we descend to Egypt, or as the word descends to Egypt, the word also rises from Egypt and sends us free. And with this beautiful day, we wish you a most wonderful year. Shalom. Thank you for listening to Bible Stories as Blueprints of the Soul. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions, comments, or would like to hear more about a certain topic, just write us an email to hebrew@learnoutlive.com. We are always happy to hear from you. For more episodes, videos, and articles like this, please visit our website at hebrew.learnoutlive.com. We also would like to invite you to join our live classes. Just search for Online College of Biblical Hebrew on Facebook and start learning now with students from all over the world. Koltuv and Shalom.